Hey, welcome to Geek Freaks. I am Frank, and I'm here with Jonathan.
Well, hello.
And today we got a lot to cover. John Lithgow's going to be coming to Harry Potter. We got Rings of Power stuff. Main thing, though, we're going to be doing today is talking about Captain America Brave New World. Jonathan hasn't watched it yet. We're going to be doing a spoiler-free review to start things off with. And then we're going to follow that up with a segment from Challenge Accepted where me and Thomas talked about the movie in detail, all the spoilers for an hour. So I'm going to cut in about 15 minutes of that one so you guys can get a little vibe for it and then go follow up over there. And again, there's timestamps for everything in the notes. So if you want to just click around to like jump to the review, you're welcome to do that as well. Jonathan, how was your Valentine's Day, man?
It was good. I was planning or hoping to go see the Captain America movie, and then I don't know, just the whole plans and schedule didn't work out. So unfortunately, I didn't get to go see it. But we stayed home and watched a sappy romance movie. The Proposal. That's the one. The wife got to choose the movie. Yeah. But yeah, it was good. Can't complain.
For Father's Day, you get to pick it. There you go.
Right. There you go.
That's good though. It was definitely a busy weekend. Actually, the movie outperformed its expectations. As we're recording this right now, they plan on it making 70 to 80,000, and it's already breaking 100,000 or 100 million. I'm sorry, million. So it already is doing better than before. And I think people were just hungry for some Marvel movies. Last year, all we had was Deadpool and Wolverine, and this one we have 3 coming. So I think people are just excited for that. Let's touch on some network updates real quick. We have Outlast Podcast coming back this week, barring everybody getting sick right now or all passing around the same cold or whatever. So we'll know soon. Again, Challenge Accepted just did the full spoiler-filled review for this movie, but also doing John Williams' month over there, and the last one is going to be Superman, and that's coming out this week as well. And then Headlines is returning. So I had shuttered to Headlines because I wanted to focus on Lore Master, try something new, and I just love talking about the latest in geek culture, and I didn't. My plan was to slow down on the TikToks and all aspects of Headlines. It didn't work out. I kept getting into it, and I'm just having so much fun. So Headlines is back. You guys can subscribe on any podcast platform. They are 1 minute long. They even have intro and outro music now. I upped the value of it. Check that out, guys. Come hang out with us. Let's get into the news. We're going to go, again, kind of quick through these. But first off, John Lithgow. You remember John Lithgow? He's from like Third Rock from the Sun and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, such an awesome actor.
So he's set to play Dumbledore for HBO's Harry Potter series. This cast is looking pretty good for this Harry Potter series, but he's an American actor. He has played a British character a few times in the past. What do you think about him playing such an iconic British role?
Yeah, I think it'll definitely. I mean, he's got the acting chops. I don't doubt that. So it may be a little bit of a stretch for him because it doesn't seem like an easy fit. When you see his other characters that he's well known for, you just wouldn't say that's Dumbledore. It's just kind of out there for him. But I think he can handle it. I think he can do it. I imagine, though, I don't know. I haven't read the Harry Potter books, so I'm sure there's more depth to the character than what we've seen in the other Harry Potter movies. But I'm wondering if there's a little bit of a quirkiness to him. John Lithgow could definitely exploit that and play that version of the character a lot better, I think. But I don't know. Do you know more about Dumbledore from any of the books or anything like that?
From the books, no. I assume that they're going to bring in the stuff that they have said that they're going to bring in everything from the book. So they're going to be telling the entire story over 10 years. So they're going to have time to pull everything, probably add things that are not even in the books, but they're definitely using all of it. So I think that we're going to have more Dumbledore than we had in the past. And John Lithgow played Winston Churchill for the Crown series and did an excellent job of like the old British guy. So even if he wanted to just play it straight like that, like just an old British guy with no whimsy at all, I think he could. But John Lithgow, when he plays Arch, when he adds a little bit of that villainy in his voice, is so fun. So I'm really hoping they let him kind of play around with that.
That'd be cool. And Dumbledore is more like warm though, right? He's regal and a mentor, but also very personable, isn't he?
I get the vibes of he is, but underneath it, he's also a little rebel,
Yeah. Okay.
Like the Ministry of Magic's always like, here are the rules. And he's always like, hey, Harry, here's a time turner, go start some mischief for me and stuff like that. Like he's got his little army. And so I think something like that John Lithgow could really play with and have fun. So
that'd be cool.
Rings of Power has been renewed. So this is up in the air. I know people were like, oh, it's going to definitely come back. It didn't necessarily hit as hard as it's supposed to, but it has been renewed. And what they're doing this time is they're going to do a time jump and jump right into the war of the elves, humans, and dwarves versus Sauron. Have you been watching Rings of Power, John?
No, but I think when it started, I didn't have Prime, and I have it now. So I think it's time to binge it and get caught up.
Unfortunately for me, it doesn't grab me like House of the Dragon does and Game of Thrones did. I don't
Yeah.
know what it is. I think the dialogue is a little bit too high fantasy, where
Mhm.
it's a lot more like, well, it's Lord of the Rings, right? It's Lord of the Rings speech. And
Mhm.
I love me some arguing over a thing of wine in Game of Thrones, you know?
Does it have like a deep dramatic backstory, or is it just kind of? Is it? You think the writing is just a little too light for what you're looking for?
I would not say dramatic. It is very,
Yeah.
very high fantasy. Like the backstory of all the stuff is like, oh yeah, I fought this war against him, 2,000 years ago when I was training as an
Mm.
elf here. Everything is
Okay.
kind of that way. There is no, I mean, like I can't even think of like scandals necessarily that would be. I can't really think
Mm.
of a high scandal. I know that one of
Yeah.
the villains, he has a bit of a scandal because he's like was part of Sauron and then he leads the orcs on his own. But that was pretty weak. It was not in comparison to everything else. And I just don't know if Lord of the Rings lends itself to TV shows very well. I think it's better for those big movies because it's all about the big battles and stuff too.
That's a shame. It sounds like they need to work on their writing, like the actual translating the book to the screen. It takes
Yeah.
a little bit of work. We've seen it in other stuff where they massage it a little bit and make it fit better. But hopefully, season 3 is taking a turn in a better direction. I guess.
With it doing a time jump and jumping right into a battle, it feels like they were like, look, we just got to put the money into this and get this thing into a
Mhm.
big war immediately.
Yeah.
I talked to a couple of friends. Alma reacts on TikTok, guys. Check her videos out. But she was saying she expected it to be renewed and expected it to do a time jump because
Mm.
the next thing that happens in the story would be that. Yeah, there's plenty of time, but like it's just preamble of getting ready for war. The next
Mhm.
like actual event is okay, let's jump into war. And even House of the Dragons just confirmed this week as well that when they come back, it'll be in the middle of the bloodiest war, which I knew that because of the book, but they're
Mhm.
like appeasing people who didn't know what happened, why all of a sudden it ended with nothing at the end of season 2. They're like, well, it's because all the budget's in the beginning of season 3 with 2 gigantic wars. And it's like, okay, but you got a lot of promise you just made, you know?
Yeah, I was still so disappointed in the end of the season.
Yeah.
You spent the entire episode teasing that this fight is going to start, the entire episode, and then it didn't start, and you have to wait for the next season.
Yeah.
Like, come on, that's
Which is in 2026.
such a letdown. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So long away. So yeah, Rings of Power is coming back, guys. We got to make sure to give it a shot, everybody. We want it to be successful. It's worth it. Netflix is developing their own fantasy series. Now, we originally had talked about this when when Paramount Plus was trying to do it.
Mhm.
Paramount Plus couldn't make it actually happen. So Netflix bought the rights to it. Dungeons and Dragons: The Forgotten Realms. It's a live action series set in Dungeons and Dragons. Since the last time we talked about this, Jonathan, you are now a D&D player. So
Mhm.
with your knowledge in D&D at this point, what is it that you would want to see out of a D&D series? Again, remember, you're not just for the fans. You got to go for the mainstream people too.
I mean, so if you can kind of teach, you need a world build
Yeah.
to me, because the game is so free. I guess it's ever changing. It kind of we build it as we play, but there is rules and there is a foundation that it's built on. So I think if you really explain that foundation, then the rest of the story can be almost anything. I mean, you obviously have to still write a fun story.
Right.
I think having those core like anchors in the ground is going to be pivotal, a big part to actually making it believable.
Yeah. So the movie I thought did a pretty good job with that, right? It was like
Mhm.
this is the Dungeons and Dragons world. We're gonna tell a small story that fits within it, and the rules apply. Would you want them to do something similar to that, or a lot of the comments are wanting to actually pull from the actual books? Like, there are books you could use as a DM to run your campaign, and like we in our current campaign, we are kind of half using one book and I'm half making up the rest of it. Would you think that that's better for them, and like at least we have source material?
Like that would be like following a comic book, right? We've seen great success in that, but we've also seen where they stick a little bit too strictly to the comic book,
Yeah.
and it doesn't do good on screen. So I think you could use the D&D books as the source material, but it still needs to be well adapted to the screen, or the mainstream audience won't care for it. So, and you might be better off just having movie writers write the story, but they have to study what it's going to be built into, the type of world and the rules and stuff like that it's going to be in. But this seems like the type of thing where the story, especially being that it's a series and not just a movie, will rely so much on the characters, which is exactly what the player experience is anyways.
That's
your
true.
character, the building of your character, its growth is what it's all about. So, I mean, it's like it's made for a series. we are introduced to these characters and how they fit within the world around them, and then we watch them grow, and then hopefully, to make it fun and interesting, we're gonna see some of them die off in dramatic scenes and stuff like that. But as it goes on, they're gonna be replaced with other ones. Maybe at the end of a season, the whole group dies off, but then the next season, we're in the same world, the same terror is terrorizing the world or whatever, and we just find a different group of people that happen to have maybe we even saw them cross paths at one point, but they were going different directions, and now it's like, okay, we're following these guys because we're still in the same world, and the players had to create new characters pretty much.
And there are a lot of really cool named people, a lot of named villains or whatever, like the Strata Ranger or whatever. I think having them in the world, but not necessarily the focus of the main story, is good, so that you can follow these characters that are like you would be as a player, just randomly adventuring the world, and you'll run into all the really famous people that are in the stories. I think that's probably the most freeing way to do it, the way you can have the most flexibility. And one of the things I would really like to see, again, brought up in the TikTok comments that we were discussing this on, make playable characters with all the people that are on this TV. Oh, I really like this character played by whomever, Chris Pine or whatever. And then they give you a character sheet for him too, if you want to add him in your guys' campaign. And then cool. That would be such a blast. You guys run into random people you like on, if you were playing, you guys just ran into 11 from Stranger Things, that kind of thing. So I think that would be a fun way to bring in the crew.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Now, as a D&D player, what are some of the things that D&D can do that other TV shows don't maybe have their freedom for? For example, I'll start us off with, other shows have a set narrative and the ability to kind of just invent on a fly. The DM having to do that, having this overlord and multiple stages of, I think the openness of D&D lends itself a lot more to the creativity of the writers. One of the biggest problems with Game of Thrones is they got ahead of the writer, George R. R. Martin, and so they had to make it up. And the fans are always like, well, it's not as good as that. And then if that happens with this, it's like, yeah, that's fine though. That's just how his campaign's going. It's not as good as that one, but that's just how the campaign went.
I think that's great from the view of the player. It's somebody who knows D&D, but I don't think the mainstream audience will understand that. So they'll fall off if even like you're saying, you can name drop these guys that are in the books and stuff like that. That's great for us. If you recognize that name, then you get that Easter egg and you have that inside joke or whatever it is. But everybody else is turning around, looking at each other like, hey, who the heck is that guy? Why should I know by the score or something like that? I should care about that name, but I have no idea who he is. So they got to be careful doing that kind of thing. Honestly, I hate to say it, but I think we got to lean towards appeasing the mainstream just so this can continue and make the money and, be on screen, exposing people to a version of D&D that might get them to take it home and play it and try it out. And then, because watching it on TV isn't nearly as fun as playing the game itself. Absolutely. So if you can have a whitewashed version of it that gets people's interest enough for them to try it out, that's totally worth it. I won't feel bad that it's been bastardized a little bit if it means it gets more people playing it at home, because that's where it's really at.
You guys are in such a big spot for right now for your guys' campaign. You just secured your basically fortress into hell, and we're going to be doing it not in person this next segment. So, because we have pregnancy coming up real soon. Shout out to Daniel. But that'll be interesting to see how that happens.
We have a birth coming up. The pregnancy already started.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant.
I mean, I'm trying, but it's not working.
But so you guys have this big battle coming up, and that book in particular would be fantastic. But that's a whole season of it where you fight off, hell's armies and whatnot. So it's always exciting.
And we've talked before about my next character. I think I'm changing it again already, though, to be a little more serious of a character, not so crazy and wacky. Fit a dialogue a little easier. But I'm still excited to start another campaign at some point in the near future.
Well, we've been talking about doing multiple campaigns. That's definitely something that could happen. And with this one, I think you guys have gotten to where you're doing death saving throws twice, which is so light. Which means I got to ramp it up a little bit. I got to throw a little more at the wall. It's hard because I can't tell when Squeaks is going to do something. Squeaks is always trying to get everybody killed. The shit he does. There's always somebody in the group doing that. Where he's just I'm going to walk in front of this mirror. I'm like, you've seen the mirrors blow people up. What are you doing?
Right. Charge into the room of enemies or whatever. It's are you sure about that?
So it's I can't ramp it up too hard because he's going to pull the whole thing. It's a little tricky.
Okay. More death saving throws.
All right. HBO also confirms that they have planned 4 seasons for The Last of Us. So The Last of Us is coming back in April, which, God, I'm so ready for.
Season 3 in April, right?
2.
Oh, okay. Dang.
I know.
I didn't realize that. So do we have 3 more seasons planned starting with that one.
Yeah.
That's great.
So right now there are 2 games for The Last of Us. The first game covered the first season. And what we've been hearing is the second game will cover seasons 2 and 3. But we didn't know if they were going to do any more seasons. Now we know they're going to do 4. They have multiple options. Stretch the second game out even farther because they're already stretching it for 2 seasons. Stretch it for 3 seasons instead. Or just make up a story that like kind of gives everybody closure for the 3rd season.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they'll tell a story for a 3rd game that's not even on the horizon at all. I know you don't know The Last of Us very well, the video game version.
Mm-hmm.
What from this story are you wanting to see that you don't see in other zombie shows?
What we see in most zombie shows is like you're following the same people for a while. They're facing different challenges, something like that, and at some point we see them die off, and they're kind of handing off the torch to the next group, or at least a couple people to carry it on.
Yeah.
And we see that all the time in video games too. After a couple games, a lot of times your main characters have changed. Well, sometimes, not all the time, but so that's why I'm kind of worried that if they try to continue for so many seasons, we're going to end up having to replace characters and have, you're fighting a horde of zombies. You don't last long. So yeah, I don't want to get to the point that everybody's been replaced.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's kind of, I think it'd be best if they do write a good conclusion in season 3.
Which is nice because they kind of have like a set number of seasons so they can do that. It's not like Walking Dead where it's like, we could go to 11 if we keep pushing type of thing. And it's like, we feel it though.
Exactly. The writing gets thinner and thinner. And, and I like the idea of stretching out the second game into the second game into 2 seasons, because a lot of video games, you don't get as much character development as you would in a movie or TV show.
Yeah.
So to be able to spend the time getting to know the characters, the more time you spend with the character on screen and, they're diving into their backstory and everything, the more it kills you when they die, or when they're just, they got 1 bullet left in the gun and they have to find a way to get out of that building or something like that. Yeah. The stakes weigh on you a lot more when you're more invested in the character. So I think that's a good call.
To me, one of the things that we get, like, I know this isn't technically zombies, it's a fungal thing. Mm-hmm. We never see a cure. Like, there's never a cure that successfully happens or anything like that. How nice would it be if they actually find a cure and then we see them like save the world? It's always like, we're going to start again and it's going to suck. But what if they're like, if we spray this stuff on the guys that scream at us, it fixes them. And so I wouldn't mind them figuring that out in this one.
Find an anti-fungus that you spray on, animals or whatever. And as they spread, it's killing the fungus. And
get into the bird supply or something like that. And they start going crazy.
I don't know. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And they're all a network. So it'd be reasonable to think if you put an antivirus in one spot, it's going to spread across the network pretty quick.
Point.
Yeah.
Academy Award nominee for Best Original Screenplay, September 5, is now on digital. Based on the true events at the 1972 Olympics and the hostage crisis that changed media coverage forever, starring Peter Skarsgård, John Magaro, Ben Chaplin, and Lenny Benish. Buy or rent September 5 on Fandango at home now. Rated PG from Paramount Pictures. Let's go ahead and get into our Captain America Brave New World review. All right, so we're going to be starting off with a spoiler-free review, guys, and then we'll switch over to spoilers. Jonathan, what we're going to do is we're going to have you ask me questions. I'll kind of give a rundown for, reaction, but you're going to ask me questions, I'll answer them, and we'll go from there. Obviously, this is Sam Wilson as Captain America. He is struggling with his identity in this new role. One of the things that they bring up a lot is the fact that, like, I'm not a super soldier. And it's one of the things, like, when you hear about Sam Wilson being Captain America, that's one of the things that the fans would ask. Well, it's brought up in the movie as well, and they do address it. We have his relationship with Thaddeus Ross, who's now president. Ross himself is trying to be a better person, which is very different for Thaddeus. Normally in the comic books, he's always just a jerk. And, he's not trying to just hunt down Hulks all the time. There is tension over the Celestial in Eternals that came up out of the ocean. It's kind of like this new island that was formed. They now call it Celestial Island. And they discover that it is made out of adamantium. So the crux of the entire movie is who's going to control the adamantium? How do we divvy this up amongst the nations? Ross trying to become a good person and a good president, and Captain America trying to solidify his name as Captain America. Mm-hmm. That's where we're at. And there's other villains that are on the board and stuff like that, but
I like it. So in this, do they explain that adamantium is actually stronger than vibranium?
What's nice is they talk about vibranium, like he's doing this presentation. He talks about vibranium as this so good metal, and he's like, now we have adamantium. And with this, we can do these things. So it's not that it's better than vibranium. It's just that it's different than vibranium and we have access to it. And so it's kind of like, hey, this stuff's harder than vibranium and I might not have the, vibration aspects of it or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot to it.
So Wolverine's claws against Captain's shield. What happens?
I know there's an answer somewhere, but I think it's like a rock and a hard place. Yeah.
Okay.
That's like we do see
cancel each other out. That's great.
We do see vibranium cut Hulk skin in this movie, but I know adamantium can as well.
I would like to think if they're equal to each other, then they can both harm each other. They can both puncture each other. So I imagine Wolverine jumps over and stabs and gets his blades like a third of the way or maybe even halfway into the shield, but then Cap rips it from him and it breaks the blades off in the shield.
Let's ask the question. Can Wolverine?
All right, folks. So we're going to ChatGPT with this question.
There you go.
Can Wolverine's blades damage Captain America's shield?
So here it says, in Marvel lore, Captain America's shield is made of a unique vibranium alloy that absorbs energy and is virtually indestructible. While Wolverine's adamantium claws are incredibly sharp and durable, they aren't depicted as being able to damage the shield. The vibranium's energy absorption abilities or properties mean that even an attack from Wolverine's claws don't leave a mark. There's something there to it. Okay, that's good to know. Okay. Any other questions, John? What's next one?
So how was the pacing in this movie? I know a lot of the Marvel movies kind of are up and down. Some of them are maintain an action-packed
great
movie
question.
throughout, but how does this one feel?
So this one, it is a spy thriller. So like you would expect from a 007 or a Mission Impossible or Winter Soldier, there are fight scenes that move you from one point to another point. And oftentimes the fight scenes are like in different locales, like, oh, this one's in, Indian Ocean and stuff like that. So yeah, there are different fight scenes. And then there are two ending fight scenes. One, and I really like about them is each of the ending fight scenes really show off the two different versions of Captain America. One of them is very much Falcon's abilities. The other one is very much, I got a shield, time to fight kind of abilities.
Okay. One thing I don't like about some action movies is they seem like they got big explosions and stuff for no reason. They seem like they're just trying to entertain you with explosions, with blowing up cars and stuff like that. Especially movies like Fast and the Furious is the best example to me, the later ones. Does this seem like it has much of that, or is it more grounded in a deep story that really keeps it moving forward?
I would say it's the characters that keep it going forward. Each of these characters have very complex reasonings for what they're doing. Like for President Ross, for Thunderbolt Ross. In the comic books and what we know so far from the MCU is he's just like a guy who's trying to control everything through the military. And in this one, this isn't a spoiler, he's just trying to be a better person for his daughter, who's kind of like, obviously went with Hulk. This movie references 2008's Hulk a lot. So if you guys remember that old ass movie, it references it. And so he's just trying to be a better person. And it's very hard for Thaddeus Ross. It's just not the kind of person he is. He's a military man and a hunter. So that's the kind of thing that's pushing this, is those kind of stories. Like again, with Sam Wilson, it's the identity, not being a super soldier, not being Steve Rogers. And
Okay. Do you think in this there was any characters or even like small side plot arcs that were just not necessary, that they kind of added as just filler?
So one of the villains is the leader, and we know that there was some shoots after. They shot most of it before the strikes, and then had the strikes, and while they were on strike, they bettered the script a little bit, and then they shot stuff afterwards. And you could tell it was like a lot of the leader scenes were. And the leader's a cool character, sure, but I think he felt a little bit tacked on and not super needed. I would say that one of the characters that are on there that actually is the highlight of everything is Isaiah Bradley. So if you guys watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the show on Disney Plus, you were introduced to Isaiah Bradley. He is a Captain America from the Korean War, the second attempt at Steve Rogers. And instead of being like heralded, this Isaiah Bradley is black. And so when he does the same thing of like betraying commands to save lives, he gets thrown in jail for 20 years. And and so now Isaiah's retired and just trying to ignore the White House and get away from it. And he's brought into it. And just his story, the way he's played, holy cow. No joke, like just near tears at a certain part for him. I threw it up on threads and just all the comments are like, I was crying. I was bawling. That one had me so hard. Like there's so many, there's a part of it, Jonathan, like, when you have an older relative, like our grandpa and stuff like that, where they kind of get a little lost and confused. There's a part where he's doing that and you're just like, don't tear my heart out. I'm trying to watch a damn Marvel movie, guys. Right. It was really beautiful.
Oh, man. Okay. So that kind of answers my second question or my next question, but I'll see if you have any more. Is what characters in this, if any, would you want to see either carried on in other movies, have their own standalone movie, or another series, more of those characters? But
so definitely, obviously Isaiah Bradley, right? We need to see him like in the 60s and 70s, like do a throwback. You could have Winter Soldier be around because he's unfrozen and frozen all the time. And you could have Red Guardian from Thunderbolts coming up. But also the Sidewinder, who is part of the Serpent Society, which is just like a paramilitary, basically guns for hired terrorist group. We see him a lot, played by Giancarlo Esposito as Sidewinder, the leader of the group. Let's get them more. Like, just have them be random bad guys for people in other movies. It'd be a blast.
Nice. I like it. Yeah. All right. And final one, what's your rating on this?
I thought long and hard about this because going into this thing, all I saw were from the reviewers that I generally trust, like 3s and 5s out of 10. After watching it, though, I'm like, I don't understand why they didn't like this. And I know a lot of the complaints are that they didn't take any chances. Oh, the brave and the bold. Well, it wasn't brave or bold. You know what it was? It was a good movie to watch. It was fun. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. No problems at all with this movie. Like when you're nitpicking, you get it down to an 8. But I mean, like, if you're just looking for a good movie to watch on a Saturday, this is it. This is so fun that way.
Nice. I like it. I'm still definitely going to watch it.
I know you're probably watching it today, actually. So that'll be good. So yeah, guys, what we're going to do now is cut over to Challenge Accepted where we go into spoilers. So if you guys don't want spoilers, you guys can skip to the end. But we're going to go ahead and do that now. We'll do about 15, 20 minutes of that right now. Let's start going through a couple more of the characters here. I want to go to Joaquin, who's our new Falcon. And one of the notes I wrote down here is Sam improved on Steve. And I think that's one thing that I have a problem with is Joaquin, I don't think it is improving on Sam. So Steve, a man at a time, trying to feel how humanity is nowadays. But he missed that kind of like, it's why Sam is a counselor, right? He missed that kind of relatability in that soldier's life. And remember, like not sleeping in a soft bed. It's hard to sleep in a soft bed. That thing.
Yeah. Feels like a marshmallow. You sink to the floor.
Yeah. I don't think Joaquin provides that for Sam. Not yet. He is really cool to watch. But I think as a person, as a Joaquin to Sam, not necessarily Falcon to Captain America, I don't think there's that relationship in this one. What are your thoughts there?
Dude, that's a good criticism. I didn't think about that at all, but I actually think that's really fair. I think they try to show it a little bit because like Joaquin's on the computer, right? And he's like, I tracked him. He's here. Like he's definitely more tech savvy. So I think they tried to show that, but you're right. Like he doesn't necessarily have the same support that Sam had for Steve. And so, yeah, there is there. But I will say, he had some of the funniest lines in the movie for me.
Yeah, that was his job. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and hope he delivered it. Like I was like, oh man, Joaquin's hilarious. And I didn't really love the suit, but I loved like their partnership. Yeah. Like you ever, I feel like we're getting to that age now where there's like younger kids who are in their 20s and like, God, that's so sad to say like kids, but like, I'm saying like, or even like teenagers. Right. But then they say something or you just connect with them and you're like, dude, that was smart. Like you're on it. Like you get it. I felt like that relationship was kind of there. And so for me, it kind of reminded me of some like younger cousins I had, or like when there was kids that we would hire for some of my jobs and we bring them in and they were on it and they were just saying funny shit. And so I liked it, but I think you're so fair in saying like, he didn't really elevate him to grow past where he was already at.
Right. Like a great example of this too, I think in my opinion is Batman is outstanding. To me, the best hero of all heroes. But when you add a Robin to him, I think so.
That's a whole conversation for another time.
When you add Robin to him, and each Robin's different in what they add to him, but when you add Robin to him, it elevates Batman to this like fathership role, and and it takes away the like I'm willing to die thing out of Batman a little bit, which makes him a better hero. And that's one thing that I think every sidekick should do, and this one might not have missed the mark. That being said, when he's flying alongside Cap at the end, and when they're battling for that adamantium, holy cow, those two in tandem was a lot of fun to watch. That was like watching Top Gun.
It was so much Top Gun pulled out of this, but and it looked cool. It was just like, dang, seeing these two fly together, and it's different than Iron Man. It's different than Vision. It's going to be different than Sentry that we see coming up in the Thunderbolts, but it just like is so cool. And I love the distinction of just how they fly, and they keep finding unique ways to make it look cool. Like, it was so awesome. But I really enjoyed him. I agree, though. I think that there could have been more that he could have done for Sam's character. But I want to see more of him. And I think also at the end, one of my favorite parts of the movie is when after he gets hit, he gets exploded out by Celestial Island. He's all burned. That conversation, two guys of color trying to talk about, we always have to be better. And, I don't necessarily know if I understand that feeling, but I hear it and I feel it. And that feeling of like, hey, we always got to, I'm just going to go there, man. I'm going to say it. I love this quote that I read online that was like, empathy, or I guess inclusion, isn't saying that your life was hard because of the color of your skin, or like you weren't given opportunities because of the color of your skin. It was because it's just saying that the color of your skin wasn't a barrier to entry. And we know who we're kind of talking about in that point. But these guys relating to each other, being from diverse backgrounds and saying and representing America, and also trying to just do their best. Like that last conversation when he's in the bed, just really, it touched me. I liked it. I just wish there was more of that throughout the movie.
And I think there's definitely room to grow now. And the idea that like we're going to start the Avengers together, those two going around rounding people up, like knocking on, when they find Vision, like hiding out in some random neighborhood, like, hey, buddy, it's time to change colors and let's go. You're done being White Vision. You're going back. That would be incredible.
This would be awesome.
So let's go to Ross. A very big departure, in my opinion, from the comic books is the fact that he is trying his best to be a nice guy. I mean, like, I can't think of a Ross that did that. And I really enjoyed the Chekhov's gun in this, where he kept taking pills. They made sure the camera stopped so you could see it. He kept taking pills. You didn't know what they were for. You knew Red Hawk was coming, of course, but that was such a good, like, I wish I was there with somebody who didn't know about Red Hawk at all, and watching him take those pills. You're like, oh, is he dying? It's like, worse. He's not dying, unfortunately. And so, I thought that was really, really good storytelling. And then I talked to you off mic about how I feel like you could really feel the additional filming. And I think a lot of that was the leader's calls to Henry Ford, were some of those, I think. And while I don't think they were like super impactful, I think the reason they added them in is because it gave context to Henry Ford's character being more usable in the next era of Marvel, and kind of like not just going to a bad guy. Like they made sure that you saw that he was trying his best to fight those urges to be the old Thunderbolt Ross.
Yeah. And I gave a lot of context to why the leader is a part of the story, which was cool. I think it really tied in also why we have the leader in this story, right? Like a lot of people are saying it kind of feels like Incredible Hulk 2.0. And then it brings back, we saw the blood drip into his head at the end of Incredible Hulk. And you're like, okay, is that ever going to get paid off? Well, they did some 17 years later, whatever it is now. So there was that. It was cool, that connection. But Harrison Ford, man, Harrison Ford has still got it when he's giving the speech to the whole UN or the whole, everybody from all these different countries. And he's talking about adamantium, and he's having those conversations with Sam, all stirred. And then he also is showing this vulnerable side on the ship of like, I did this because I wanted to show my daughter I could be a better man. And he's sad, and he was like, I'm dying. It's like, God dang, Harrison Ford, what a legend. What a one-of-a-kind actor. I'm surprised he still
has it, honestly. It's crazy.
Me too. But dude, I honestly was still surprised. Again, man, it is my bad. I didn't watch the latest Indiana Jones. I tried to watch it. I got to go back and watch it, but
and I didn't watch Shrinking. My bad on that too. I know I haven't watched Shrinking yet. I will.
He's funny though. He's so funny in Shrinking.
Yeah,
but he doesn't have a lot of range in Shrinking.
Okay.
In this movie, I feel like they gave him range. He goes from being like presidential, he goes to being stern, he goes to be emotional, he goes to being angry, he goes to being sad. Like, it's like, wow, Harrison Ford, they let him open the bag and like, go for it, man. And I was so impressed. I'm so thankful that they got him for this movie. William Hurt would have been incredible too. Like, no doubt.
Of course.
He would have been able to do it too. But if you could have had anybody to kind of fill those shoes, God, did Harrison Ford do a good job. And man, he chewed up scenery. I loved it. I was like, man, he's
that final chat on the raft that his daughter comes in, I thought was some really good resetting for the character. And Red Hulk has worked alongside the Avengers and, Thunderbolts and stuff like that in the past. It's definitely not, priority, but I think now we're all setting up Secret Wars, and we'll talk about that a little more in the future. But now I can imagine that he will be a part of Secret Wars.
Yeah, me too. I can see him being a part of the Thunderbolts now, because there was a bunch of things in those trailers.
Wild. That would be fucking wild, man. Holy cow.
That trailer is missing so much, but that's a conversation for another time.
One of the things is like Taskmaster is clearly dead in the first 5 minutes. That's what watch those trailers. Yeah.
For sure. But I don't know. I feel like there could be a Red Hulk showing in there, especially you got a bunch of people who punch and shoot, as you lady said, and you got a god. But
and eccentric.
Anyways,
yeah.
And eccentric. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but he just did such a good job. And the only part where I was like, they could have done it a little bit better is when he's hulking out at the stand. Mm-hmm. I got to agree with some of the other reviewers who I really respect and just love what they do. I really do wish they saved some of that in the trailers, though. I feel like we got too much Red Hulk.
Oh, of course.
Where it did kind of ruin that, because you don't get a lot of footage. Like, don't get me wrong, the fight's epic in the cherry blossoms and everything. But we saw so much of it in the trailers. It was like, damn it. Like,
even the fight for the Celestial, I think we got a lot of that too. And you know, I hate to say this, but I think it's because they were like, well, Sam's not going to sell us on his own. Mm-hmm. And we need a Hulk. We need to show that we're going to be answering the Eternals question. And it's unfortunate that that's the case, but in their defense, like, you are changing a primary character in the Avengers. So I get that. Not everybody's going to watch the TV show. They definitely should. But, yeah, so I think that's the reason that for this one particularly, they had to kind of like show all the cards and like, all right, let's just see what order we play them in. Right. And but
do you think
that question was all exposed. Yeah,
100%. Okay, so if they had just shown the transformation of the hand burning the carpet behind the podium, and then him almost before he got over to the podium, that's all they showed. But instead, they showed more of the leader. Do you think it would have brought in just as much people, or no?
No,
I mean, probably not, but like,
because the leader is enough, if you're a nerd to the degree like we are, and you know the leader was in the 2008 movie, you might be like, oh, cool, they're answering back the old school one. But I mean, and then you'd be like, oh, he's in there, a Hulk villain. Plus, you're adding, you know. So I would love them to have the Red Hulk not appear in any of the ads. I don't think it's possible. Yeah, that's
true. I was hoping, man, if just the hand was enough, that'd have been so cool. But he did it. He crushed it. I didn't necessarily love that scene, but the fight that breaks out from there is just epic. I want to talk a little bit more about the leader, and I think we got to go into Sam Wilson.
Yeah. The leaders, I thought visually they did a good job of making him look pretty good for the comic book accuracy thing. He obviously doesn't have like the same hair or whatever as the comic book, but MCU. Right.
A little bit more Brady.
Of the MCU, though, like for the earlier days of the MCU, they wouldn't go there. Like, if you guys remember, like back in those days, they were like afraid to show anything that looked silly. And so they wouldn't show they would just show him as like a smart guy. Very great example is Iron Man 3 shying away on the villain at the last second. And so, what's his name? The Mandarin?
Well, they didn't have the Mandarin. And then they went with like Killian from AIM, basically. Yeah. So, I mean, like, they shied away at the last second and they didn't really stick to what you'd see in the comic books. This was like, oh, that is what the leader would look like if you were to make him live action, I think. And I do appreciate that. And I think that he did a really good job of kind of like weaving himself in there. And then we saw he was defeated. And then he's like, all right, well, then I gotta escalate. And it was like, you gotta lock this dude up. He's a dangerous guy. And I love the fact that he's like also so smart that he can kind of see the probabilities of the future. Mm-hmm. And I think like, I would love to see him in a conversation with, you know, and Tony Stark's not off, but like Reed Richards and stuff like that. That's going to be a good conversation in the future. Yeah. Like, two super intelligent people, right? Like one is for good, one is for bad is always the best. Like it just is going to be this explosion of like, what's going to happen in a movable object with an unstoppable force? Like what's going to happen here? Yeah. I think they could have, we know Tim Blake Nelson has been in these amazing movies. I think there's more they could have done with his character. I think there's more that they could have done to kind of trick Sam, or just to have things, even when it seems like it's going their way, it doesn't go their way. Yeah. I think there's more they could have done with him, but I didn't mind his looks at all. I thought the looks were good. And I think it's smart that he's not dead at the end of the movie. Yeah, I can see him coming up in a lot more situations. And, you know, when you bring in all the other heroes that are still alive, and you start working these plans, and he's kind of manipulating the scenes where every time they think they win, it's just kind of feeding more into his plan. I would love that. I think that's so good. But yeah, I kind of just wish they developed him a little bit more.
Bro, you just blew my mind a little bit. They're Arkhaming now. They hadn't done that in the first part of the Marvel, because this feels like, again, Avengers 2.0. They're doing the Arkham thing now where they're saving all their villains instead of burning them up. And so just bring back Leader or whatever. There's a breakout. The entire Avengers movie is about a breakout at the raft. About damn time Marvel did that, because they keep closing these doors forever, and they're like, man, Ultron's a really good villain. Where'd he go? Luckily we're getting him back too, but for a long time it didn't seem like that was going to happen. And so that's cool. I like the idea that we're going to have this kind of little Arkham Asylum that we can just kind of nudge the door open every so often we want a really cool Batman story.
Definitely. We don't even know who else is at the raft besides Zemo. Zemo might have been spotted in there as well. But the raft is such a cool, interesting idea. A prison floating in the middle of the ocean, where the most dangerous villains go. I just think it's so cool. But I think there's so much more they need to do with the Leader in future movies.
I agree.
Yeah. Sam Wilson.
I would like to talk about how they made sure to, I have it here too, they acknowledge Sam's weakness, and you see it even in the fight scenes where Captain America, where Steve Rogers would jump out of, helicarrier and land and oh, that was rough, and then get up and fight. Sam definitely couldn't do that. When he took a hit, The vibranium wings were heavy carrying in this fight against Red Hulk. But I do appreciate that they didn't just try to make him suddenly stronger for no reason, because I think that was one of the concerns I saw online real early on was why is Sam losing that fight? Why would a Captain America lose that fight basically when he's fighting a regular dude? And it's no, he wins out, but he's definitely not a super soldier. And that's fine. Can we address
that really quick though?
Yeah.
It's not fun if he just wins every fight, by the way, either.
It's the Superman problem, yeah.
Even MMA fighters who are at the top of their game to win every fight. What do you mean? Of course. And also, you're going to judge this off of 10 seconds in a trailer? Watch the movie. You'll see what happens, bro. So
many people who complain about this movie already, you just get the vibe you have not seen this movie then. And they're it's this or that, or they're trying to cheapen out Captain America. Bro, watch the movie. Watch his fight with Red Hulk, and that's exactly, in my opinion, how that fight should have gone. Where he has to talk him down. It's the exact same thing, and nobody better. Matter of fact, to me, it's arguably one of the best fights is Doctor Strange versus Dormammu, because in that fight, ain't no way in hell Doctor Strange is beating Dormammu. So he has to outthink the situation and calm and talk him through it. And I think that's exactly what Sam had to do. Ain't no way in hell he's going to beat Red Hulk. So he better figure out a way to talk him through. Luckily, the cherry blossoms are around. That was a good move. So you saw him get in that area, nice.
Yeah. No, I love the call out to Doctor Strange. I think that was a perfect example, because in the MCU, I can't speak for all other villains in the world, whatever, but there's just some villains that you're just not powerful enough to beat. It doesn't even matter if you're Thor, or Doctor Strange. They don't have enough power. So you have to outthink them. You have to humanize yourself to be able to do it, so that, because they can't think on a human level. And sometimes that is an advantage as much as it is a weakness. And so, yes, it was so good. Also, he's just brawling dudes in hallways. He's finding unique ways to hit the shield. He spin kicks it one time in a dude's chest.
Yes.
This epic. He's way more acrobatic than Steve Rogers, and it's not better. Again, we're not talking better. It's the vibranium adamantium. It's just different, and it's cool. And I like seeing how they can use this metal frisbee in different ways, and I keep being amazed by it.
It reminds me of video games and RPGs. You either choose to go more strength or more agility. One went strength, one went agility. So they're using the things in different ways, and that's freaking cool. The fact that we get to see both of these, we're very lucky.
Yeah, exactly. And they set it up perfectly when they go to the gym with what is his name? Isaiah
and Joaquin. Yeah.
Exactly. And they're training, and they show him being super agile and still pulling the flags.
Yeah.
You're oh, this is different. This is not how Steve would do it, but it still works. And I think they perfectly set it up, and he's more agile. He's more acrobatic, and it just it adds a lot of fun to all the fight scenes. Plus they're a little bit more visceral, because if you even go back to Winter Soldier, Cap's running around, he throws a shield in someone's chest, they get blasted, or he kicks someone, they go flying over the railing.
Yeah.
Sam can't do that. So there's a few more punches and a few more kicks that get thrown in there, and I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, I think for the next iteration of Sam's, Captain America, I want to take away the vibranium. I know that they called out that they're going to bring more vibranium in, but like, hey, we have adamantium now. Let's use that. Let's change up that formula of the vibranium a little bit. And I do like the idea of kind of Iron Manning him a little bit, where like he has more gadgets. Like I like the part where he's pushing something and he like kicked in the what's it called, Red One or whatever.
Red Wing. Yeah.
He kicked in like Red Wing's jets to help him push. I'm like, that's cool. Do more of that.
That was smart.
Things. Yeah.
Yes, that was so cool. Where you're like, okay, he's not super strong. He can't just like run through them. So he uses the jetpack to fly through them.
Yeah,
dude, that was awesome.
That was cool.
I thought that was so cool. Yeah. Or he uses Red Wing and he attaches the shield to Red Wing. So Red Wing flies behind him.
Dude, oh, how cool was that? Where it was like blocking the bullets and he's like just ahead. Oh my god, I was like, that is fucking cool. Yeah.
So cool.
See, yeah.
Or okay, so we get the mind wiped different Air Force pilots, right?
Yeah.
And he busted through the window, cuts open, right? And he pulls the guy out, and then he has to pull up, but he doesn't have enough strength. He's human. He's like gravity's pulling him down, right?
Yeah.
We're forcing against him. So he uses the slingshot, the grappling cable to pull on the control yoke. Dude, so smart. I love that. I thought that was sick.
And Red Wing, the two versions went out there and started stabilizing one of the wings and stuff like that. It's just cool to see the gadgets. Yeah.
That's smart. I know. And that's actually really smart. Like knowing a little bit about aviation, man, that's actually like, oh, that's really clever. That's a clever way to do it. And it's nothing that Steve would have been able to do. He would have done it a completely different way. He might have been able to just strong arm the control yoke, which would have been cool too, but it's just different. And I love that showing the difference. And he's still doing the exact same things, just in a completely different way.
Steve Rogers taking down a fighter jet is like such a staple for Marvel in the comic books. In the MCU, they've done it. I think it's Civil War when he did it last time. One time I read it, I was just like, that's the coolest move Steve Rogers could ever possibly do. And then he always like, I think in Civil War, he like takes him out to lunch afterwards. It's like, that's my boy, you know. So it's just such a cool move to see this version out of Sam is neat.
Yeah, the Quinjet with the shield going bing, 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 breaking it all. Oh, that was I love that.
I just watched it again last night. I was like, God, I forgot how good this is. It's such a good movie. Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, but Sam had a lot to do with it. And even when he's not all suited up and everything, there's a part where they have to also establish him outside of the tech. And I think they did it. We get that part. We didn't even talk about Giancarlo Esposito playing Sidewinder from the Serpent Society. Yeah. He's driving the truck, pulls around the corner. The guy starts unloading on him, throws a grenade in there. Did Sam get out? Yes, he did. And just like takes an axe to the chest and he just goes hand to hand. Yeah. And I think they established like the guy's super capable, whether he has the wings or not. And I thought that was dope. I think he just proved, he had so much to prove.
All right, we are back with Geek Freaks, guys. So, Jonathan, we're going to be closing things out with our recommendations for the week. What is your recommendation for the week?
Is Daredevil. I don't know. I've been rewatching the previous seasons of Daredevil. It's so good. And I don't remember. I know we have the new season coming out soon, or the new series. Mm-hmm. Do you know when that's coming out? Is it March?
Gosh dang it, John. It's March, maybe early April. On the fly. Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. We're just a handful of weeks away. So definitely, if you haven't caught up on that, now's the time. Jump in so you can get it all before the new season starts.
Yeah. For me, this week in comic books, we have New Gods coming out again. New Gods is one of the old school titles. Jack Kirby from DC. And DC's been doing this new thing where they're bringing back some old titles starting at number ones and stuff. New Gods is coming back. And so it's a good way to start getting into, just really not seen often DC side. Darkseid is from the New Gods, like the villain for Superman. He's a New God person. So check that out, guys. It's over on DC. And make sure you call your comic book shop and set up Wednesday pool lists. You go in on a Wednesday. You can go in like once a month and collect all the comic books that came out that month. That's the way I like to do it. So check that out, guys. Again, New Gods from DC, number one this week on Wednesday. All right, guys. I appreciate you hanging out with us, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.